Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to my last YouTube video on data questions. So, it's a video I've prepared for about a week, trying to find out whether there is any other relevant information I can give you as far as this data question was concerned. So I will first go through some important findings I found, which will assist you even in other areas related to the data question. So in the beginning, I'll just highlight a few concepts before I come to the data question proper. Again, it's a great pleasure to welcome you guys. Welcome. Since the question we are just about to see how it was marked is dealing with data from a pod ecosystem, I've started with this famous photograph of a natural pod ecosystem surrounded by dense green vegetation. Guys, can you leave a comment after this? So after that, the question is actually on ecology, the feeding relationships, and any other related information concerning that. So I begin by defining what is a trophic level. And this one was done or researched from the Wikipedia encyclopedia. The trophic level of an organism is the position it occupies in a food web. Within a food web, a food chain is a succession of organisms that eat other organisms and may in turn be eaten themselves. The trophic level of an organism is the number of steps it is from the start of the chain. A food web starts at trophic level 1 with primary producers such as plants and can move to amoebas at level 2, carnivores at level 3 or higher, and typically finish with apex predators at level 4 or 5. The path along the food web chain can form either a one-way flow or a part of a wider food web. Ecological communities with high biodiversity form more complex trophic paths. The word trophic derives from the Greek trophy, referring to food or nourishment. Producers or autotrophs. Producers are typically plants or algae. Plants and algae do not usually eat other organisms, but pull nutrients from the soil or the ocean and manufacture their own food using photosynthesis. For this reason, they are called primary producers. In this way, it is energy from the sun that usually powers the base of the food chain. Plants. Plants are autotrophs, meaning self-feeding. This makes plant producers and the lowest trophic level of the pond food chain. Plants will be eaten by animals, which will in turn get eaten by larger animals, going up the food chain. In this way, plants form the basis for the whole food web in a pod. Far pastures, a nature reserve home to newly released red kids, is that beginning photograph. The photograph of the pond, in fact, was entitled Far Pastures, a natural reserve home to newly released red kites, and you see the acknowledgements at the end of this video. First trophic level. The plants in this image and the algae and the phytoplankton in the lake are primary producers. That is the photograph we have seen, the first slide. They take nutrients from the soil or the water and manufacture their own food by photosynthesis using energy from the sun. So there, we have given you a photograph on how the algae looks like. All right, that is algae. You see some of it is green, the others are not green, and so forth. Then there you have the phytoplankton taken from Lake Chuzenji, Lake Suchenzi. I don't know where that place is, but I will find out later. We have now, after talking about the first trophic level, we have the second trophic level. Rabbits eat plants at the first trophic level, so they are primary consumers. Primary consumers is the second trophic level. You can see that rabbits. Third trophic level, foxes eat rabbits at the second trophic level, so they are secondary consumers. A leopard preying on impala, again, this is a I think it's a secondary consumer. Yeah. Because they eat the primary consumer, the impala. The impala feeds on the plant. All right. And therefore, this one is also a secondary consumer. We have interspecific interactions such as predation are a key aspect of community ecology. You can see the lion and the cub feeding on the carcass of a buffalo. If you look at the end of the video, you find the credit or attrition of this photograph. Here we have the lion preying on a zebra. In this case, it is acting like a secondary consumer. All right. We have fourth trophic level, golden eagle eating fox at the third trophic level. So it is a tertiary consumer. We have the mean trophic level of the world fisheries catch has steadily declined because many high trophic level fish, such as this tuna, have been overfished. So this is a tuna fish. So the overfishing has affected the trophic levels of fish. We have another photograph here. Killer whales are apex predators, but they are divided into separate populations that hunt specific prey such as tuna, shark, small sharks, and seals. So this one is a tertiary consumer. Then we have now the final group here known as the decomposers. The fungi on this tree feed on dead matter, converting it back to nutrients that primary producers can use. So that is why we say matter is neither created nor destroyed. Decomposers or detritivores. Decomposers break down dead plant and animal material and wastes and release it again as energy and nutrients into the ecosystem for recycling. Decomposers such as bacteria and fungi or mushrooms feed on waste and dead matter, converting it into inorganic chemicals that can be recycled as mineral nutrients for plants to use again. The trophic level of an organism is the position it occupies in a food web. So, guys, we are trying now to combine all the points we had before here. Within a food web, a food chain is a succession of organisms that eat other organisms and may in turn be eaten themselves. The trophic level of an organism is the number of steps it takes from the start of the chain. A food web starts at trophic level number 1 with the primary producers such as plants, can move to herbivores at level 2, carnivores at level 3 or higher, and typically finish with apex predators at level 4 or 5. The path along the chain can form either a one-way flow or part of a wider food web. So you can see the trophic levels there. Level 1 is plants and algae make their own food and are called producers. Level 2, herbivores eat plants and are called primary consumers. Level 3, carnivores that eat herbivores are called secondary consumers. And level 4, carnivores that eat other carnivores are called tertiary consumers. The food chain of a pod can include algae, small animals, insects and their larvae, small fish, big fish, and a fish-eating bird. So this is the food chain of a pod. And in it, we can have several food chains. We have algae, which is eaten by insects. And the insects are eaten by fish, and the fish is eaten by hawk. Or we have another food chain. Phytoplankton is eaten by zooplankton, which is then eaten by small fish. And these are eaten by the large fish. And finally, the large fish are eaten by the whale. Are some of the examples of the aquatic food chain. So these are some examples. of the aquatic food chain. So we have a diagram there of a food chain where we have energy, producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. The energy comes from the sun, is absorbed by the grass. Through photosynthesis, food is made which is eaten by the grasshopper. And the grasshopper is eaten by the bird, and the bird is eaten by the fox. Then we have a diagram of a food chain for water bands of the Chesapeake Bay, United States. This is after my research. So you can see tertiary consumers, secondary consumers, primary consumers, and beavers. And then we have the primary producers. All right. You can see all those animals in the diagram. I think there is no problem. I think the diagram is clear because for the tertiary consumers, you can see the osprey and the bald eagle. All right. Those can even feed on a lion. All right. Then we have secondary consumers like the gulls and terns, wading birds, large piscivorous fish, sea ducks, and tundra swan. Primary consumers, we have small planktivorous fish, and we have the bivalves. Then we have the amphibians there, zooplankton, benthic invertebrates, herbivorous ducks, and geese and mute swans. And finally, primary producers, we have the phytoplankton, submerged aquatic vegetation, and vegetation. A trophic pyramid or a food web, and a food web. A trophic pyramid, which is shown in the diagram A after this, and a food web, also shown in the diagram coming after this, illustrating ecological relationships among creatures that are typical of a modern boreal terrestrial ecosystem. Boreal means aerial terrestrial ecosystem. The trophic pyramid roughly represents the biomass usually measured as total dry weight at each level. Plants generally have the greatest biomass. Names of trophic categories are shown to the right of the pyramid. Some ecosystems, such as many wetlands, do not organize as a strict pyramid because aquatic plants are not as productive as long-lived terrestrial plants such as trees. Ecological trophical pyramids are typically one of three kinds: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, or pyramid of energy. So there we have a trophical pyramid on your left, then we have a food web on the other side. So the pyramid there, you have the plants below there, you have the soil, the plants, the beavers, primary predators, and secondary predators. These are known as heterotrophs. Plants are the autotrophs because they make their own food, and the heterotrophs cannot make their own food. Soil, and below the soil you have the decay now. In the soil there is decay detritivores, which are also heterotrophs. Then on the food web, you can see several animals there. All right. And from there you can generate several food chains. So a food web is made up of several food chains. An energy pyramid is what I'll pick from the three pyramids we have just discussed below. An energy pyramid is a presentation of the trophic levels in an ecosystem. Energy from the sun is transferred through the ecosystem by passing through various trophic levels. Roughly 10% of the energy is transferred from one trophic level to the next, thus preventing large amounts of trophic levels. There must be higher amounts of biomass at the bottom of the pyramid to support the energy and biomass requirements of the higher trophic levels. In other words, if you look at the producers, there are very many in this world because of what they support above the higher trophic levels, like primary producers, which are more than secondary like primary consumers, which are more than secondary consumers, which are more than tertiary consumers, and of course, we have what we call the quaternary consumers. So you find that producers are very, very many. So we have now the diagram here of the energy pyramid. And from the diagram, you can see at the bottom there, and you see energy is lost at each trophic level, 10%. And you can see the energy, all that energy comes from the sun. All right. Decomposers then, at every trophic level, then decomposers work on the organisms there to recycle the nutrients back. So you can see primary producers have 100% energy. Primary consumers have 10%. Secondary consumers take 1%. Land level consumers take 0.1%, and finally the apex predators get 0.01% of the energy. And that is why there are very, very few in this world. Another beautiful energy pyramid there from Encyclopedia Britannica. And you can also see that energy is lost, and we said 10% at each trophic level. From the producers, energy is transferred, and then as it is being transferred, you can see now some of the energy is lost. So we have producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. And you can also see the animals in those levels as you go up the pyramid. Food web. In real world ecosystem, there is more than one food chain for most organisms, since most organisms eat more than one kind of food or are eaten by more than one type of predator. A diagram that sets out the intricate network of intersecting and overlapping food chains for an ecosystem is called its food web. Decomposers are often left off food webs, but if included, they mark the end of a food chain. Thus, food chains start with primary producers and end with decay and decomposers. Since the decomposers recycle nutrients, leaving them so they can be reused by primary producers, they are sometimes regarded as occupying their own trophic level. And now, guys, welcome to the data question. 2015 Biology Paper 2 data question. So I will begin by asking you, ever wondered why certain organisms thrive in shallow waters while others prefer the depths? What secrets do these layers hold, and how do they impact the entire pond ecosystem? By the end of this video, you'll see pond life in a completely new light. We will go beyond just graphs and data, exploring the fascinating interaction between producers, consumers, and decomposers. This journey will change how you think about aquatic ecosystems and reveal the hidden connections that sustain life. In this lesson, we will use real pond data to bring complex biological concepts to life. I will show you how to interpret ecological graphs and uncover the relationships between species, depth, and productivity in a pond. Together, we will dive into the role of each species, understand why productivity changes with depth, and discover the importance of organisms like fungi in this ecosystem. So, the graph shows the relative numbers of 3 main species of organisms in a pod. X-axis depth in meters, y-axis number of organisms in thousands. Then we have graph for M, graph for N, and graph for L, LMN. Question number 2. The questions. Giving a reason for your answer, which of the species is a producer? Reason. Secondary consumer, reason. State the depth at which each of the populations labeled L, M, and N is at its optimum. Which method may have been used to determine the population of organisms labeled N in the pond? Give a reason for your answer in C above. State the assumptions made when using the method in C above. State 2 reasons why primary productivity in pond decreases with depth. Explain the ecological importance of fungi to plants. Why is flooding likely to lead to cholera outbreak? So the answers, according to the KCSE examiners, all right, producer is M, and the reason is it is the largest in number, hence a source of food for other species, or abundant on the water surface to trap light for photosynthesis. Secondary consumer is N, reason, smaller or fewer in number than L and M, or least in number. So the researched question tells you producer, and the answer so is specimen M. So the reason, producers typically have higher populations near the water surface where sunlight is available, allowing them to perform photosynthesis. Species M has its highest population at shallower depths. Secondary consumer is N. Secondary consumers feed on primary consumers, often found at the greater depth. Species N has its highest population at a depth where fewer producers are present, suggesting it preys on primary consumers that thrive at the intermediate depths. So that is the answer, polished from the KCSE one is just like a summary, but this here I give the answer in details for your own good, my viewers. The depth at each of the population labeled L, M, and N is at optimum. We have for KCSE 1.125 meters for L. For M, you have 0.75 meters and for n you have 2 meters. Units must be there, otherwise you reject. For the research, 0.75 meters for L, M 1 meter, and N around 2.5 meters. So that is after researching. But for KCSE, you can see what was given. For KCSE examiners, the method which may be used to determine the population labeled N in the pond is the capture method. Accept capture, mark, release, recapture. And the reason is that animals are highly mobile, except constantly moving. Assumptions made when using the method above is that no migration during the period of study, no deaths or variation or reproduction in population during the period. Methods of marking do not affect the animal behavior. Marked released animals will freely mix with others in the pond. Released and marked animals will have enough time to mix with the others. And finally, you assume that this is uniform. There is uniform random distribution of animals in the pond. So let's put it now in another way. The method is capture-recapture method. And the reason, this method is often used for mobile organisms in aquatic ecosystems, as it allows researchers to estimate population sizes without observing all individuals directly. Assumptions. The marked organisms mixed evenly back into the population. There is no significant migration or mortality between marking and recapture. And finally, the marks are not lost or overlooked during the recapture. Reasons why primary productivity in the pond decreases with depth. Decrease in light intensity as depth increases. Decrease in temperature as depth increases. That is the way the cans were marked. And for me, we have number one, reduced sunlight. Light intensity decreases with depth, reducing the energy available for photosynthesis. Lower energy levels. Less oxygen is available at greater depths, which can limit photosynthetic activity. Explanation of the ecological importance to the plants, according to the KCSE marking. Breakdown of organic material or decomposed rot decay of materials to release nutrients, or some parasitic fungi causes diseases that harm or kill plants, or symbiotic fungi provide nutrients to the plants. And my research, ecological importance of fungi to plants, decomposition. Fungi break down dead organic matter, releasing nutrients back into the soil, which plant can absorb. Symbiosis. Fungi form mutualistic relationship, e.g. mycorrhiza, with the plant roots, enhancing water and nutrient absorption. Why flooding is likely to lead to cholera outbreak? KCSE. Flood water may mix with human waste contaminated with cholera bacteria. The flood water may then contaminate food water sources. The contaminated water or food causes cholera infection when ingested. My research, why flooding may lead to cholera outbreak. 1, 2, 3. 1. Contaminated water sources. Flood waters can mix sewage with drinking water sources, spreading Vibrio cholerae, the bacterium responsible for cholera. Inadequate sanitation. Flooding can disrupt sanitation facilities, increasing the risk of contamination and poor hygiene. Increased population density in shelters. Flood victims often gather in crowded shelters with limited clean water and sanitation facilities, facilitating the spread of cholera. And this is noticeable in places like Kibra in Nairobi, Korogosho, Mukuru kwa Njenga, and all the slums in the world. Real-life connections. This pond data reviews insights with real-life connections that go beyond the classroom, showing how ecosystems, energy flow, and population dynamics affect both nature and human life. Here are some real-life connections. Understanding ecosystem health. Observing species distribution in a pond helps ecologists monitor ecosystem health, which, when one species suddenly grows or declines, it can indicate changes in water quality or pollution levels or nutrient availability. For instance, if secondary consumers like fish decrease, it might suggest contamination affecting the entire food chain. Application in aquaculture and fisheries. Knowing the optimum depth of producers, plants and algae, and consumers, fish and insects help fish farmers create balanced habitats. In aquaculture, understanding where and why certain organisms thrive can lead to better management practices that support sustainable fish populations. Implications for water resource management. Data on species distribution by depth aids in managing water bodies used for human consumption, agriculture, or recreation. It helps in assessing where pollutants settle and informs where to limit human activity to protect drinking water and biodiversity. Role in climate change adaptation. Aquatic ecosystems are sensitive indicators of climate change. Monitoring changes in species like those in the graph, producers decreasing with depth due to light limitations, reviews how shifts in temperature or light levels impact primary productivity. This data can help predict how ponds, lakes, and even oceans respond to rising global temperatures. Disease prevention and public health. Understanding the dynamics of pond life can help predict outbreaks of diseases such as cholera, which can be triggered by changes in water quality. This data reinforces the importance of managing floodwaters and maintaining proper sanitation to prevent waterborne diseases. Agriculture and garden ecosystem. Similar principles of species distribution apply to gardens and farms where plants, soil organisms, and water play interconnected roles. Just as fungi support plants in pond by recycling nutrients, soil fungi in farms enhance plant growth by breaking down organic matter. This connection highlights the ecological importance of fungi and decomposers in natural and agriculture settings. Education on environmental stewardship. For students, understanding the layered distribution of life within ponds fosters a deeper appreciation of local water bodies and their ecological roles. This awareness encourages better stewardship practices such as reducing pollution, supporting wetland conservation, and protecting natural habitats. So after that, you have the acknowledgements. All right, that is the first one. Okay. Next one of the rabbit, James Williams. golden eagles, Christine Western Park, far pastures and nature reserve home to newly released red kites. That is the first photograph. Killer whales and tuna. They are all in the public domain. Energy pyramid and fungi and golden eagles. Male lion and cub. Cheetah South Africa, Luca Karuzi. Changes in fauna and habitats of water birds. Trophic pyramid. Algae. Phytoplankton.